try to make me feel embarrassed. Their attempts have been in vain, but they tell me I'm the one with problems. They're the ones who are insane. So for those who are but won't admit it, you shouldn't feel like that, cause you could be 20% cooler and 10 seconds slower. Shout it out. I'm proud to be a Brony. Yeah, yeah. I'm proud to be a Brony.
Hello mayors and gentle colts, my fellow bronies. Welcome to a special edition of I'm Brony and I'm Proud. I've got Michael Dobson, aka Bulk Biceps, with me. G'day, Michael.
G'day, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yourself?
Good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah! Outstanding, outstanding. If you're new to the fandom or just thinking about it, you should get into the fandom for that one reason alone. That has become such a catchphrase, along with many others from the show, and has made Michael a household name in the Brony community worldwide. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be here. I'm honored. Thank you.
So we're going to go straight into it, down the rabbit hole into the life and career of Michael Dobson.
I grew up in England, in London. At the time, I was in the Air Training Corps in the UK. Back then, my aspirations lay a completely different way. I was going full-time into the Royal Air Force. I had aspirations of being a pilot in the RAF. And I was training to be a pilot in the Air Training Corps, and I was a flight sergeant at the time. And everything was going well. I had honors in my exams, and I won a scholarship. I was going to be shipped off to Malta for 6 weeks for a training course. And then I was going to come back, and at the time, it was still East and West Germany. Full intentions of writing my ROTC and entering the Royal Air Force as a pilot officer and continuing on, and hoped that one day I'd be flying fighter planes. My youngest brother, who's also an actor, he was quite young at the time and I was 16. For health reasons, my parents had to leave London. Two places that they applied to immigrate to was Canada and to Australia. Funnily enough, Canada came up first. My father works in avionics. You know, I grew up with planes, so there's a lot of interest there. Plus, my father was in the Royal Air Force. My mother was in the Army. So when we came to Canada, long story short was I ended up going back to school. Took some electives. I took communications media, and I took art history and Canadian and American history. And one of the classes I also took was theater arts. The person who taught the course, and I got along like a house on fire. But the thing was, when I took that first theater arts class, just met so many like-minded people, and I really felt at home. And as I always like to say, I found my tribe. My aspirations shifted. I found myself writing my own show, and I toured it around Toronto to various different places, and I had a lot of success with that. I joined some theater companies. I was with Georgetown Little Theater Company and then Brampton Bramalea. And then the bug was there. I did several theater performances there. Eventually I moved out west, and I went to University of Victoria and did the performing arts program there. And then I belonged to Corner Store Theater Company there and did several productions in Victoria. And then I also was a member of the Edna Brown's Dinner Theater. I met a fellow who, in my building, an apartment building I lived, who was the creative director for one of the radio stations, CJVI in Victoria, and I ended up doing a bunch of comedy spots and commercials for them. And then it just caught like wildfire. I was doing a bunch of commercials for all the radio stations in Victoria. Then a buddy of mine said to me, Dobson, you gotta get out of Victoria, you gotta go where the work is. And Vancouver was just starting to blossom as a hub for film and television. So I came to Vancouver, and after auditioning a few times, I got a few bit parts in TV and film, and then eventually I guest roles on X-Files and Viper and 7 Days and Poltergeist, The Commish, and a bunch of other shows that were being shot in Vancouver. So I started off doing quite a bit of on-camera work in Vancouver. And then I ran into a name that you'll recognize, Scott McNeil. And Scott was doing a play called Torn Stars in Vancouver, and he was amazing and blew me away. And him and I became quite close friends because my background is theater. He started talking to me about this voiceover stuff that was going on in Vancouver, and he just finished doing He-Man and a bunch of other shows. He said to me, there's a director called Sue Blue who directs a lot of animation, and she's from Los Angeles, and she's coming up to Vancouver to do a workshop. You should take it because if you meet her, you know, she directs a lot of stuff. You never know where that might go. So I took her class, and her and I hit it off really well. And a great time, really enjoyed it a lot. It was an awesome workshop. And then when you know it, I think it was like about 8 weeks later, she was auditioning voice actors in Vancouver for G.I. Joe Extreme. I auditioned and I got the role of Sergeant Savage, and that was the beginning. Around about the same time I got on Ranma, and I started doing a lot of anime stuff at Ocean. I was on Ranma half. Then from there, it just snowballed from one to the next. I was Leonardo in the Ninja Turtles, and then the next minute, Starscream and Transformers. And I was very fortunate and just kind of went from gig to gig. And I was doing on camera as well as voice acting. And here I am now. I've been working full-time as an actor in Vancouver since 1994. I've been very fortunate. It's been awesome. I've worked on a lot of video games since then and imaging for radio and TV stations, as well as documentary VO narration. I've done everything from video game trailers to movie trailers, and then of course a lot of animation and TV and radio commercials. So it's been good.
I think everyone have died of multiple nerdgasms after hearing all that.
You're always a work in progress, right? You're always on your craft. You always want to kind of raise the bar on what you're doing and reinvent what you do, because the competition is pretty fierce. So you got to stay on top of your game for sure.
I guess when you're in a studio, you're standing most of the time, aren't you?
You stand in all the time, yeah, pretty much.
So you have full reign to really express yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun, too, because when you're doing a scene, you're making eye contact with the person that you have the scene with, and there's all these gestures that are going on between the two, or however many there are of you in that one particular moment in that scene. You really do work off one another. It's awesome. That's when you're doing what they call prelay, which is when we record the voice first, we do all the vocal tracks first, and then they animate to our voices. And then they have what's called ADR, which is an acronym for automated dialogue replacement. And when we do ADR, that's when the animation exists and it's already been voiced in another language other than English. And then we follow the mouth movements of what we call flaps, and we place English dialogue onto the track so that we convert it from whatever language it was in previously to English. So that's ADR. And we do that for live action as well as animation.
I have to ask, when you're doing the recording, I guess, I don't know what you call them, engineers, are they also observing your body language? And have you been told that they've paid attention to your body language and that may have also translated into the shows that you were recording voices for?
Most predominantly on the first few days of recording. Sometimes it might occur at other points in the recording of the show, and episode-wise. But the animators will come in, you're completely right. They'll come in with sketch pads, and they'll come in with cameras, and they'll be shooting stills as well as recording you. And as you're, like what you said, gesticulating and your facial expressions and the way that you emote behind the microphone, they're recording all that because those will be all points of reference when they render the actual character. So there'll be things that you do in the studio that will actually show up in the animated character that they create from your performance. So they're looking at your visual cues and seeing where you carry the weight with your character, what your facial expressions are, what your gestures are. The animators take lots of cues from those and use that to animate your character. You're completely right. They do that, yes.
Probably why they come probably early on is so they get your reactions fresh as a daisy.
And then they might come at other points too, because, as over a period of time, you've played enough episodes by this point where you've kind of seen all the different emotional arcs to your character, and you're really embodying the character more probably than you did the first couple of episodes, because you've had a chance to live in their shoes for a longer length of time, and, you get really comfortable with one another. I know that kind of sounds like that might be fodder for a psychologist, but it's true. Is that you really need to be able to immerse yourself in the character so that you are the character when you're behind the microphone. That's the interesting thing about voiceover, is there is that misconception that voiceover is about voices. To be quite honest, the voice part is the last part of the process. It's about finding who this person is. Where does their energy sit? What moves them? You do all the same prep work as you would for an on-camera character that you'd play. And so you really need to be able to inhabit the soul of whoever that character is that you're playing. And as absurd as the character might be, even now today with CGI, even when you're doing on-camera roles, you could be playing a Minotaur, you could be playing a chicken. You just green screen it, put on your mocap suit, they can turn you into anything they want. So, the process is exactly the same. So it is all about the acting. It has to be. It has to be about inhabiting the character that you're performing and reacting to everything in real time. The interesting thing about that is that you actually have less to work with than an on-camera actor would, or an actor on stage, because you don't have wardrobe, you don't have set deck, you don't have the actual props right there to work with. It's all got to be theater of the mind. People forget that, when you watch these shows, they're doing everything in real time. So if a wizard picks up an orb, stares into it, you've got to put all that in your performance. So you got to go, yes. Slowly lift it up and place it in front of the eyes and peer deeply into it. And people got to see that, right? They have to see all that. So you give the animators stuff to do. You can't all of a sudden just, be in a room somewhere and seek something out and then be instantly there. You have to imagine your character walking over to it, taking it off the shelf, looking at it, and then bringing it over to the other person that you're doing the scene with. So all that stuff has to happen in real time so that the characters, when they're being animated, are all doing that. So it becomes real. As they say, like, the performance needs to come off the page and it has to render itself into a reality that when the animators work with it, plays out on screen. That's the cool part of what we do. It requires that extra little bit, if you will. The performance levels, a lot of people also think right away that you're going to be doing Looney Tunes kind of over the top, Warner Brothers kind of that kind of stuff. Predominantly now, especially with CGI, a lot of the work that we do is very live action based. The Looney Tunes stuff is still out there for sure and is very popular, as it always will be. But a lot of the material that we do is very grounded and very live action based. And so there used to be this fear with voice actors that, if they were going to ever do anything in front of the camera that, oh my God, they're going to be over the top and they're going to be mugging for the camera and doing all this. They're going to be like Daffy Duck trying to control them in front of the camera. And I mean, nothing can be further than the truth. And it's interesting. It's really refreshing when you get people who predominantly do on-camera work, do voiceover, for them to hear them say when they come out of it is like, wow, man, that's like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. That's, okay, I take my hat off to you. What you guys do is not easy. The only reason why I bring it up is because there's that misconception out there that it's just about voices, and nothing could be further than the truth about that. It is all about performance. It's all about acting chops, for sure.
The actor's journey remains the same. It's quite interesting that you said about what else happens, especially the animators. They're observing your every move, and they've got all this, they're packing all this gear. So voiceover work is very much a combination of off-camera and on-camera work from what it sounds like. Coming from a theatrical background, it's quite beneficial because you have to think on your feet, so to speak. There's no take two. But like you're saying, it's acting in its most minimalist form. I would even have to say, one of its purest forms. The only thing you have to work with is your imagination. That's probably one of the actor's biggest weapons.
You nailed it, actually, because I think that probably one of the best backgrounds and training that you could have to get into voiceover is definitely theater training. To be trained for the stage, you always have to be prepared for the unpredictable stuff, because quite often on stage, especially when you're working with props, sometimes a prop master might forget, set the stage properly for that particular scene, and the prop might not be there, or the prop could fail. Particularly if you've got any action scenes which requires a handgun and you've got caps in there and you need to shoot somebody on stage, often pull the trigger and nothing happens. That can be brutal. It's a very unpredictable place to work. And so you need to be on your feet. So if something doesn't happen or if somebody makes an entrance late, improvisational skills are key. You need to remain in character. You can't go, sorry, buddy, right at this moment this is supposed to happen. And you can't pull the audience out of the illusion of what's happening on stage. You have to go with it. Sometimes you might be hanging out to dry on stage for 2 or 3 minutes before whatever is not working works, because lights can fail, special effects can fail. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong. With voiceover, it's not so much things like that, but unpredictably, you may show up for a session and all of a sudden somebody can say to you, oh, here's another character, blah, blah, blah. What would you do for this? And you need to come up with something right away. Or, something might get changed on you where they want you to try something different with what it was that you were doing. Things like that happen quite often, and particularly with voiceover too, when you go in for commercial auditions, reading commercial copy, whether it's for some large brand or whatever like that. But when you go into the studio, you don't get sent the scripts ahead of time. You literally walk in, and you may very well just picking up the script and looking at it. The sound engineer and director will come around the corner and go, oh, great, you're here. Let's go do this. That's your prep time right there. So you gotta be quick on your feet. You gotta be able to work with copy really, really fast. Be able to look at it, process it, know what to do with it, and just yank it off the page and lay it down. So theater training is a huge asset when it comes to working like that, for sure.
Maybe I got to get into a bit of voice acting myself. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It's challenging, and it is exactly that. It's fly by the seat of your pants. It's pretty exciting. It is fun.
Coming from someone who I've acted in some short films in the past, and generally all I can master is about a couple of paragraphs of dialogue, because I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to remember this? And I guess in voiceover work, you do have something in front of you to work with already. And like you were saying, sometimes you know in advance, but a lot of the times, you're coming in, it's like, okay, do this, or you've come in knowing you're going to do one character. It's like, okay, we changed our minds, do this one, because the director or the engineers, they might have seen something in you, heard something in your voice. It's like, maybe this person would be better for this, or I like the hell of it. Let's get this person let's get Michael to do all the voices for the single show and see what happens.
But you know, when we do Japan anime, when we did that, we never got to see the scripts before we went in to record. And often you would go in and record like the character that you were expecting to play, and then they would say, "Oh yeah, we've also cast you as this character and this character." You were expecting to go in and just play your 1 or 2 or 3 characters you might have on the show, and then you left that particular session and you played like 8, 9, 10, 11 different characters in the show. So you never know. So I mean, that's the fun part. Is just like you're constantly being challenged, which is very cool.
Oh, good. That's so awesome. I love that bit that you went into the whole Shakespearean bit in between that.
Thanks.
And I was imagining you in the voiceover studio and embodying that character and doing all the gestures and everything. I saw all of that.
I've got a movie coming out, I think, next year. I can't say any much more of that, but it's a feature film that's coming out. Some of your peeps in the Land of Oz were involved in the production of this. I'm very excited about it, but I play a character very, very similar to that. I'm the villain in it, and I speak very much like this all the time. So it's a lot of fun. It's fun playing the villains. The villains are always a blast to play.
They usually are. They usually are. I think villains are the most fun to play. Now, talking about My Little Pony, from what you've talked about, you know, you've come across where one opportunity has led to another and so on and so on. Probably My Little Pony was no different. Is that the case?
Yep, I auditioned for the role of Dr. Cabaleron, and I ended up being booked for that character. And I didn't audition for Bulk Biceps. DHX is the production house behind My Little Pony. And the producers called me in. And I'd worked with them before on other projects. So they have a good idea of my body of work and the characters that I've played. For some reason, they explained to me that Bulk Biceps, a.k.a. Snowflake, started off as kind of like a fun thing that their studio was doing. And it was catching on with the fans. And the fans' reaction to the character, I guess, because I think it was Jason that was doing the voice. And I guess when he originally showed up in the series, all he said was yeah, and it was kind of like this gag that they had integrated into the show and had woven through. But the fan base response, as they explained to me, was so great that they finally felt compelled to do something more with the character, and that meant giving the character dialogue outside of just saying yeah. So they took me aside and they said, we'd like you to give this a try. It wasn't actually given to me. It was like, although I had the role of Dr. Cabaleron, it was kind of like, take a shot at this. Let's see how it goes and see how it is. But we thought of you about voicing this character, and so let's just record it and see where we end up. And it was fun because I remember doing the dialogue in the first episode that I appeared as Bulk Biceps, and I was doing the yeah, and I was doing the dialogue and really amped and stuff. And then I was scared that I might go too big with it. And I looked through the glass, and Jason, and they're going giving me thumbs up, and I said, am I pushing it too far with this guy? And he went, no, just keep going. Go as big as you want. And I was just having a blast. I really was. He's such a fun character to play because he's just got this really charming, likable side to himself where he's just like a gentle giant. It's just kind of like a bull in a china shop who furthest thing from his mind would ever be to upset somebody or hurt anybody. He's just like this big, lovable, overpowered pony who just like rushes in, loves everything, super enthusiastic about everything, and just wants to try and do it all. And I just had a lot of fun playing him. How can you not love somebody like that who's just always in a positive mood and just is up for anything? That's an awesome person to hang out with. So the comedy, of course, is, you know, he doesn't have any subtleties. So when there's, you know, a quieter, more subtle moment happening, he just doesn't get it. And he's like, yeah, okay, let's do this. And it's just, yeah, makes it a little tough to hang out with him sometimes. But he's a lovable guy, so he's fun in his own way.
Absolutely, and I like how you talked about the characters being, you know, highly charged, enthusiastic, and you just made me realize why I relate to him so much, because that's my personality in a nutshell. And
it's a really great way to be. It's like, I'd rather that any day than somebody poo-pooing everything that I want to do, or I had to second guess, you know? It's like, he genuinely loves everybody. I wouldn't necessarily say he's naive or anything, he's just very enthusiastic. He's like, yeah, why not? That's his attitude to everything. He's like, let's try it. If we don't like it, well, then we won't do it again. But let's at least give it a go. And I love that go for it because I'm a lot like that myself, too. It's kind of like, you never know until you try it. So he always enters into everything so positively. Look at his little tiny wings. Like, he doesn't give up on flying. That's how much tenacity he has. It's awesome. And, you know, somebody might look at those and go, I don't have a hope in Hades of getting into the air with these little things. But, you know, in that episode where there's the equestrian events, I mean, he's in there like a dirty shirt. He doesn't care his wings are smaller than everybody else's. He's still going in. You know, if you look at that character from that kind of perspective, it's kind of like, oh, he sees the wine glass is half full, never half empty. And I think that kind of optimism is the really good message. That's pretty cool. It's like, don't ever give up before you try. You gotta always try. And that's cool.
He comes off as a character that, he acts first and then without really, worrying about the consequences, or like he will say his piece. And, sometimes in the more emotional situations, I like to think that the expression that he had on his face was close to the expression you had on your face when you did that line. And also remember that Bulk Biceps making an appearance made it into the episode Wonderbolts Academy. From what you've said, Bulk Biceps is a fan favorite for a whole bunch of reasons. As highly charged as he is, he genuinely loves every pony. Makes him very special.
Yeah. Love his positive attitude. That's what's so cool about him. None of us are perfect. We've all got our whatever. And, and that's what makes life interesting. That's what makes the world a beautiful place, is the fact that we all have our own strengths. Some of them are more obvious than others, maybe, but we all have them, and they're all attributes. And that's what makes the world such an amazing place to be. We should celebrate our individuality, and I'm a true believer in that. And I think that when people come together, like what you see in the show, when all those attributes are combined, you can do pretty amazing things.
I'm going to my first PonyCon next year. I haven't been to a Brony convention before.
It was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had, and I mean that sincerely. It was awesome. Which was Everfree Northwest in Seattle. I just met such incredible people. Often, people embrace a certain segment of pop culture and they're fans, but they don't necessarily live the credo behind the show. You know what I mean? And what I experienced in Seattle was exactly that. It's the fans of My Little Pony, the Bronies, just amazingly supportive, incredibly friendly, open, wonderfully social in a great way, where you meet people and they open up right away. And there's this massive support network, and it's incredible because like a lot of these people are meeting for the first time, and they may have like talked to one another over one of the mediums of social networking that's out there. Having met in person, this would be like the first time for a lot of them. And it's just phenomenal because everybody's just covered. Like, it's amazing. Like, somebody's like a few bucks short for whatever. Somebody else is like divvying in, or somebody needs a ride somewhere, they go, I got a car, or you can use my car. It's just like, and I was watching this whole thing go on, and I went, wow, the world really could learn a lot from these people, because if the world was like this, none of the negative stuff that we see on the news and all those other things, what I saw was just this amazing network of people who are literally there for one another in the most sincerest, purest form of friendship. For a lot of people looking in, and I don't mean this mean, some people, whenever they see like a group of people kind of flock to one particular thing, whatever it is, right? Whether it be Star Trek or whatever, right? People usually kind of have like a negative reaction to it and kind of go, oh, well, it's just a bunch of, fanatical people getting together and blah, blah, blah. But nothing could be further than the truth when it came to what I experienced in Seattle. It was wonderful. Like, I had such a great time. My family came. My son, my youngest boy, was with us, and he was just kept on remarking the whole time. He goes, everybody's so nice. Everybody's so friendly. I went, I know, this is awesome. We got shown around. We got introduced to things, and I made a lot of friends. I met a lot of amazing people. When I was in Dallas, Texas, I was at a G.I. Joe con there, and some bronies showed up, Leatherneck, who I'd never met. I mean, the guy traveled, I don't know, he drove like several hours because he knew I was there, and the guy shows up with a case of beer, and we end up having lunch together. We never met, and we're like old buddies talking and, learning about one another, and it was just awesome. Really cool. Dusty Cat, who drove all the way up from California, from San Jose, and we got to hang. We had lunch together, and he came over to our house and met my family and stuff, and just like, what an amazing guy. Same with Screwball. But I met him and Buttons and Margin and a bunch of guys came into town for the con that was here in Richmond, British Columbia. And again, same thing. So like, I mean, everybody that I've met that's been involved in this culture have become really great friends of mine. And I'm really proud and really humbled by the fact that I was fortunate enough to get cast on the show and meet these wonderful people, because it's been a pretty amazing ride.
That's awesome. I like what you said. Great word, credo, and the credo of the show, which is friendship and all the values that's associated with it. And that's the difference between someone who likes the show and someone who actually, yes, like you said, follows the credo. And if everyone followed that, the world, it would be a very different place.
And the thing is, I mean, this phenomena is global. I really do mean that. I feel blessed that I got an opportunity to be a very small peripheral part of this whole phenomena that's gone global. Conventions sometimes, can be kind of exhausting to go to. The Brony cons that I've been to have been just like totally chill. Everybody's laughing and having a good time, but it's relaxed, That's pretty unique. That's cool.
It's a funny thing when it comes to television shows. You never know when they're going to be a catalyst for change.
It has a lot higher profile now in our society. Like, more and more people are talking about it. People are becoming aware of it. I think what's amazing is that everybody who hasn't had an opportunity to delve into it and see what it's all about, that when they do, they're pleasantly surprised. They're kind of like, Oh, cool. So this is like people from all walks of life actually doing what the show professes, friendship is magic. Some people may listen to that and go, what the hell is that all about? Well, it's exactly that. You know, when you come together as a community and you support one another and you have everybody's best interests at heart, amazing things happen. And that is magic. Unfortunately, every day, you know, we see on TV and everything, we see the atrocities in the world. And, you know, the world is actually a really, really amazing place. My mom always used to say, you know, the world's a beautiful place, Michael. She said, it's just the people in it sometimes that make it ugly. And it's true. It's like if we all behaved that way, we could make amazing change. You see these people who have never met one another come together and meet in one place. You know, there's an affirmation right there that it is indeed achievable and it is indeed possible that good does prevail. So that gives you hope. How can it not? It's awesome. And I think that's kind of the fabric of the show, which comes back to what we originally referred to as a credo, where friendship is magic. And the magic, if you kind of break that down, it's just kind of like we can do amazing things together. And people can. If they're able to see the world through those eyes, we can do some amazing things with this planet, for sure.
This brings our show to a close. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, Michael. It means worlds to me, to Equestria and beyond, as far as the universe goes. You've made a dream come true, and all our listeners, including myself, thank you very much for your time.
I want to thank you so much for having me on your show. I've really enjoyed this. I've had a lot of fun, shared a lot of laughs with you, and my only hope is that we stay in touch and keep in contact with one another. I'd appreciate that. I just want to say to all the fans, I can't thank you enough for all your support and the outpouring of friendship that I've come to know by being involved with the Bronies and My Little Pony. Being cast on the show was an amazing experience, and I hope I get to do more episodes with My Little Pony. I just want to, from my heart, thank everyone out there for your support and your love, and I hope I have the opportunity of being able to see you at the next con somewhere. That'd be very cool. My thanks, all the best of everything to you always. That's all I can say. It's just like, thank you so much. Friendship is definitely magic. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, my friend. Take care.
All the best to everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This is Bulk Biceps saying, yeah! You guys are the best fans in the world. Thanks so much. Hope to see you all soon. Take care. Bye.
This has been I'm Brony and I'm Proud. Lucky Knight speaking. Thanks for listening. Remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at IBAIPshow. Proud to be a Brony. Intro and outro by Black Griffin. My Little Pony, friendship is magic.
What friendship could be.